Hello, hello, hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you are joining us. And welcome once again, welcome, dear audience, to another teissTalk where we are cracking cybersecurity. This week, we are going to be talking about embracing AI tools. But before that, the parish notices, as you know, we do have a Teiss mug up for one lucky winner for their best question. Now, I don't have my Teiss mug with me because, as you may guess, I'm actually on the road this week. But imagine I'm holding the Teiss mug right now. Look at it. It's wonderful. You really want to win this thing, don't you? So please do pop some questions or even a comment. I prefer a question, but a comment if it makes me laugh, into the main chat when you can. I know that our esteemed panel are just champing at the bit to not only answer your questions, but also to give us so much more information around this topic. So let me please invite onto the stage Laish, Eldar, and I do come online.
Hello.
Hi, Tom.
Hello, Laish. Hello, Eldar, and hello, Andres.
Hi.
It's a pleasure to be here.
So good. Thank you so much for being here. Let's jump straight into our news item. So if when you see it, if you click on the link there, the headline is AI adoption surges, but security awareness lags behind. Now, this is based upon a survey, as you can imagine, by a vendor. So there's always an agenda here, but nonetheless, the Extra Hop survey involved over 1,200 global security and IT leaders, and it's provided fresh insights into the adoption and management of generative AI tools like ChatGPT and Google Bard. But actually, the main concern here is that security is not the primary concern for many of these organizations, about using these tools, and that respondents are more worried about inaccurate responses than the exposure of customer and employee personally identifiable information. So, so to the panel, question here, why are we not as concerned about the security elements of AI rather than, the garbage that we put in being churned out and the garbage that comes out? Surely security is one of the key primary concerns here.
If I could just comment in my perspective, I'm thinking this is make totally sense. We are using tools, including AI, to solve the problems for our business. Meaning, if you're onboarding AI to, for example, handle your customers in simple context, very often you're much more into getting the business working, getting the right answers than thinking security. And then, of course, the big question is what should be the mix between these aspects. But from my perspective, I totally understand that they're concerned about wrong answers and responses.
So should security awareness actually be taking a backseat, generally speaking, moving forwards, because security is just a business enabler?
I agree with Eldar that it's natural that when people are first starting to take those tools, that their first concern is what value is that creating and does it work well? But security has to take a priority seat for sure, because there's so many new threats that comes with the use of this new technology. Of course, AI has been around for ages, but generative AI and the sophistication of generative AI and the type of tasks that some businesses are intending to use it to make it all much more increases the risks and creates new threats that are very important to tackle. So I think if security awareness is lagging behind, for real, companies will struggle a lot, and we're going to be seeing a lot of bad cases around media, which we already see. Don't know if you guys agree.
I do. I will add. I don't disagree with anything that's been said. First of all, I don't think awareness is the problem. I think real technical controls and the lack thereof, that's the real problem. I think a lot of people are aware,
Yes,
but business functionality always takes a priority stance over security. Looking back on a 30-year career, I can tell you that security as an afterthought is the general consensus within most businesses.
yeah,
Until something bad happens.
Yeah.
Then it's a different story. But it's always
but only
business
for about
first.
12 months.
Well, yeah,
It's a
but that's when you
different
take
story for
advantage of
about
the
12
budget.
months.
Yeah. That's where you take advantage of the budget.
That's where you milk the golden goose, or if I'm mixing my metaphors, I don't know. But
But when it comes to AI, I get that.
but go on. No, go on, please.
I mean, several times I meet organizations that are saying, okay, we're doing 40% newly development, we are doing 40% maintaining, and we're having 20% energy and technical depth. But when it comes to more modern technology, we often increases that development perspective. And in the nature of developing AI, everything is about testing and playing and doing, sorry to use the word DevOps perspective, into getting the models working.
Yeah, getting it wrong.
Meaning that you are even more not thinking about making maintainable, secure perspectives, because everything is about getting it to work. And that is a very much of a concern in the context of things are going so fast to the market. It's going to be so great that you are very much prioritizing business, which has been said here.
But there's an interesting stat that's in here. So, and I'm quoting here: basic security practices are lacking, however. So, with 82% of respondents, that's pretty good, 4 out of 5, are confident in their security stacks, but less than half of them investing in technology to monitor generative AI use, exposing them to data risk loss. Only 46% have established security policies for data sharing. And this is one of those cases of the genie is out of the bottle. And if we don't address it robustly in our organizations and wait for government legislation, something bad is quite likely to happen, right? We need to what's happening. And we've seen cases of organizations who, their staff are using generative AI to produce client material, to produce content, etc. And actually, it's traceable. It's being recognised. I'm at a security conference today, for instance, and somebody said something like they checked 42 blogs, single one of them, and they stopped at 42 because they got bored. But every single one of them, because of being created by ChatGPT or generative AI. And if that's just a blog, I'm sure there's plenty of intellectual property, chargeable material, really quite highbrow stuff that people are using, and it has no checks and balances in place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but that model might be flawed. Let me explain why. I have my own blog. I have my own blog. I've been writing in my blog for years. If that data gets consumed by a public LLM, and then that becomes part of a response to somebody else's query, and then they check my site, they might think that an engine could misconstrue my site as being fraudulent. So I think that model right there is actually flawed.
Yeah, it's true. It's not completely accurate. They cannot say for sure whether it came from generative AI tools or not. I guess that is one of the threats. I see what you said. A lot of companies are like unaware, or they haven't yet tackled the fact that their employees are already using open source tools that are available. I guess that there is a huge risk that lies on that. Some companies have the false sense of security because they haven't yet officially integrated AI tools into their business, into their systems. And I tend to advise to the actual opposite. When you're not providing our employees with a safer alternative, a more controlled alternative for the use of generative AI, most of them are already doing, and the company is therefore much more exposed, because the terms that you have with open source solutions and tools that are available are not the same that you can negotiate if you're going to actually use an enterprise tool or develop something in-house. where you know where the data is stored, how long it's kept for. So you're going to have much more control of the risks if you actually decide to have a strategy to integrate AI to your business than just ignore it as a whole. So I think ignoring as well, entering into the AI journey, it's a big risk in itself, both for business not becoming irrelevant, some type of business not being able to compete if they wait too long, but also in terms of just being more exposed to risks of data leakage, of infringement of IPR, of low quality on the deliveries, and et cetera, et cetera. So many risks that come with that scenario.
I guess we're touching the perspective of shadow IT that many of us have, I mean, seeing for ages in a perspective. What is so exciting is obviously the perspective of putting business data into models to get the answers you're looking for. That said, what we've seen in Norway now is the perspective that especially with rolling out Copilot from Microsoft, is the perspective that, okay, finally, after 20-30 years of saying information classification and information governance and data governance is so important, finally they wake up, because this call it search engines on steroids, they will find everything that we're really not aware of. And in one way, it's kind of like, yes, finally, a lot of businesses are getting some very basic information security perspective, which is kind of cool.
You know, it's a double-edged sword, though, because take Copilot, for instance. Very convenient to use, yes? But a researcher just proved that 40% of the code that Copilot generates actually has security problems embedded in it. So while that pushes the needle in a certain direction in terms of ease of use, speed to market, stuff like that, unless the data is actually scrutinized by people with proper expertise or mechanisms with proper expertise, we're actually introducing more risk by facilitating business than we were in the past.
Mm.
Yeah, I think.
Of course, that raises a question.
Sorry.
Sorry, go on, Lige.
No, it wasn't.
Okay.
Go on. Should I?
I was going to say it raises the question of. Well, I'll power through. Well, it raises the question of if Copilot gets 40%, of its code is vulnerable, how much does the average developer create? Is it greater or lower than 40%? Well, and I think it's been slightly facetious, but I think it's also,
you're not being facetious.
This is AI in its infancy, right?
But this entire industry exists because people have been writing crappy code for 40 years. So you're not being facetious. You're actually being quite accurate.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly. Lige, sorry. Please go ahead. What were you going to say?
I kind of forgot now, but I think I was going to say something related to. I got it. But I think as of now, I think the need for human oversight over those tools, it's very clear. And because I'm a lawyer, I have a lot of people coming to me and asking, when will the AI Act come out? When is it going to be enforced? And what I say is, don't wait for regulation to come out, because the threats are already here. Best practice already exists. You should be doing those. I see also a lot of companies already looking into AI governance, which is very positive. We're looking to some large oil and gas companies and who are actually starting to integrate AI tools in the way that they operate, also offering internal tools to their customers. And I think it's nice to demystify. Of course, when we're talking about risk management, it's not that you eliminate every kind of risk and that everything can be completely 100% safe under control, but demystifying and understanding, and to the best of your ability, also enabling stakeholders to both be users who are aware of the limitations of these systems, who understand how they work to a certain extent, because in the essence, when you're using large language models or generative AI, it comes a place where it is a black box, and then you have to understand those limitations of how much you can actually explain how the outputs come, and have a good sense of what can you use it for in the like that will bring more value and reduce risks. I've been seeing that like a lot of companies are starting to set up their responsible AI teams, which I think is like also having that idea that it's not about taking all your InfoSec documentation from before, burning and writing it all again because AI is here. It's about adapting your current governance to the new threats. And I guess there is like not one solution fits all. It's really important that people in their organizations are equipped and that they can rely on trusted advisors to look on a case-by-case basis. What are the threats that they face? What are the values that those systems can bring to their organization? Like, because I think it's a full journey, and it's something that will require constant monitoring, constant update. And I think we require also a lot of new skills, both from every department in a company when they start using these systems.
But what you're saying is, obviously there's new perspectives of this, but there's still quite a lot of maintaining good old security practice when it comes to how we're building and how we're doing all of security field, from training, from risk, from putting requirements, but also related to, all that programming security aspects of static code analysis and code reviews and pen testing and all that. So it's a lot of basic of what we're doing the last 30 years is still applicable, isn't it?
Absolutely. And it's all applicable. It just has to be enhanced and adapt to new threats, as it would have been. Like the AI is the new threat, like it's bringing up new situations. There will constantly be things that needs to be taken care of. I think that's the essence of risk management. It's a constant work, as you say, and there are already very good best practices in place. And I find funny companies companies that sometimes don't even have their GDPR implementation in place, that they don't have a good data management system. They should be worried, not because they don't have an AI compliance team, but because those are the basis for good risk management, and they apply also to the use of AI tools and AI systems. So I think exactly as you say, Elda, it has to be the good practice is already there. It's just it has to be kept, enhanced, and constantly monitored.
And I think that's a good segue into the panel proper as such. And the wording of the panel, I think, is very useful here, because it says embracing AI tools across your organization and ensuring you remain secure. And I think the key is in the word embracing, isn't it? If we do not embrace these tools, we are going to, one, be at a disadvantage, and two, less secure as a result, because let's face it, the attackers are almost certainly embracing these tools and attacking us at machine speed, and we're responding at the speed of, I don't know, Dave, who's the intern in the SOC team at 3 o'clock in the morning. And also, we can't wait for people to tell us how to use them per se, or how we should be using them, because frankly, it's going to be quite unique to every single organization to one degree or another.
But is it so now that attackers are here and we are like struggling with basic perspective of defense? I mean, a lot of our technical defense had machine learning and AI capabilities for a long time. That said, I'm asking in a way. I mean, where are we in level? Do the attackers have a?
I guess
just look at something like Mirai. Mirai required no technical skill set. It was an automated platform that somebody could pay for, and it caused one of the largest disruptions on the public internet as we know it. So I disagree that technical capabilities are actually up to par with the attacker's capabilities. There is no doubt, and I live in the offensive and defensive side. There is no doubt that the offensive side is always at an advantage. Now, if you introduce this type of sophistication, like what we're talking about here, it does start to raise some interesting questions and introduce some dilemmas because, to Tom's point, we're talking about a level of volume that is unprecedented. The same way Mirai was unprecedented when it became a problem. By the way, it's still a problem. Interestingly enough, there are still variants of Mirai that are wreaking havoc on the internet. But the point is, how do you? It's easy to say, okay, well, we'll embrace AI and then we'll build the defensive capabilities to counter the offensive capabilities. That is way easier said than done. If you look at the continuous evolution of our attack surfaces, almost on a daily or weekly basis, depending on how fast you're pushing out code, it's mind-boggling when you kind of step back. Like I said, on paper and in theory, it's easy to say it, but when you live it, it's a very different experience.
Yeah. I think actually nobody really knows how those heightened threats will affect. I think it will affect very deeply some organizations. It's definitely not a matter of whether or not you're going to be a target of attacks. It's when, and then when you do, it's good that you have all this risk management and that you're able to respond, identify it quickly, inform the necessary stakeholders quickly, that you have all the governance in place to tackle that and try to mitigate as much as possible the consequences of those attacks.
So let me counter that slightly, Lais, if I may.
Yes.
Think back to APTs. APTs have been a problem in our industry for a long time. Yes, we've had all of the protective mechanisms that Elder has referenced and everything Tom has talked about. We've been doing this for 30 years, and yet APTs have been able to hide in networks for months undetected. Okay, that's a fact. Now
6 months on average.
Just think about this. Now add the sophistication of a built-in LLM to an APT ecosystem that sits in your environment, learns your environment, and then gives you a strategic, and I mean like surgical, strategic viewpoint in terms of the weaknesses of that network. Now you just raise the bar of APT capabilities to a point that everything that I know of that exists in this industry today, and I've been doing this 30 years, is useless.
I must say, I still find this more of an arms race, because also the defender that yesterday did not have that capacities at all is suddenly getting some tools in his tools chest in doing more advanced defense. And how this develops, well, I want to believe in the positivity of this being an arms race that is not moving over.
That's because you're not. That's because you're not defending stuff on a daily basis. Of course, you want to believe that. But look, think about my APT example. Our defending capabilities were as sophisticated as they could get, and APTs still hide on these networks undetected. I cannot. And by the way, I had my own startup. I've invented 3 cybersecurity products. There is no way. I know the product ecosystem very well. There is no way that the defensive product ecosystem can keep up with this level of sophistication when the attackers figure out how to use LLMs internally within their actual attacking mechanisms. I hate to sound like a cynic, but I just don't see it.
And how do you feel like? So you're just. I understand that you're negative about it, and I agree to a certain extent that attackers have been ahead, and therefore there is so many huge enterprises that actually do invest in security, being still target and of successful cyber security attacks, but in any way they still need to build that governance and that mechanism that will allow them, so that once that's identified, that they're able to mitigate and operate in accordance with both the regulations to inform all the stakeholders that have been affected, but also it's the best way that they can defend themselves, even though if it's impossible to be completely defended. I wonder if there's any piece of you that thinks that this technology can also be used. For example, I was in another podcast with a good friend who's a specialist in data management in the Nordics, and he was saying like we were discussing how there's also perhaps the hope that and there is embedded like a promise that generative AI can also be used for better creating better internal practices, more control over data, more control over security. Do you think that even though we're still going to be lagging behind the threats, do you think that's something that you see developing in business?
Absolutely. No, absolutely. I don't want to sound all negative. I think that there's a lot of hope in terms of using these technologies for the defending side as well. There's no question. But you yourself, Lais, in that statement you made, everything you described was reactive. The damage was already done. So I'm informing a stakeholder after the damage was done. And that's my point, right? So we are still behind the curve, even though, think about this. How many companies have every certification on the planet, ISO 27001, all that, and still get breached? Look at Uber. Uber has every little badge on the planet, and they've been breached multiple times. So it all depends on how effective you can be, because you can't boil the ocean, right? It all depends on how effective you can be analyzing and understanding where you can spend your protective dollars, right? What your attack surface looks like. But is there hope? Absolutely. I don't want to sound all negative. Is it going to be challenging? 1,000%.
Yeah. And I think like this risk-based approach and prioritization is so key. And you also see that reflected in upcoming regulations. You see that reflected in best practices, because as you say, you cannot tackle the world at once. There will be attacks, there will be threats. You have to decide what needs to be most protected and try your best to use all the investments you can to protect that to the best of your abilities, and accept certain risks as well. It's a constant battle.
It is. I'm going to turn our attention to a question. Sarah Templey has taken an early lead in the race to the teissMug. Do you think that other other business risks regarding using AI are getting more management focused than security? So we're looping back a little bit, but I think still very much relevant. Are we not getting the attention we need in order to be more optimistic? To your point, Andres and Eldar, are we not getting the attention we need because management is looking at other areas and other challenges, other risks?
I would personally say that we are not, and that's a natural phenomenon. Corporations, unless you're a nonprofit, most corporations are concerned with revenue. And if you really think about it, the cybersecurity industry exists to protect revenue. After all the smoke clears, we're there to protect revenue, right? And I think the use of AI as it relates to anything protecting revenue and or generating revenue is going to get a priority level of attention as opposed to just security. I can't tell you anything differently because I just don't see it out there.
I completely agree. I mean, it's what are businesses doing, and I follow you all the way, Andres.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that once we start seeing the most severe financial impacts of attacks by those new threats brought by new AI systems, companies will be more willing to invest heavily on security, exactly because they will see the financial value of it. Because in the end of the day, the potential of breaking a business by not having the appropriate security in place, it's huge, especially certain areas, certain types of business. It's in the essence of what they sell and what they do to make sure that their users are protected or to make sure that their systems are not disrupted. It will eventually get there. And I'm seeing already that trend because they recognize that the threats are going to go directly into the pocket as well.
But I find it interesting that how do you create awareness on the C-level and board level, and how do you get their attention? And obviously, I mean, in Europe we have this regulatory wave from the EU, just of course putting a lot of the agenda on the top management board, but other perspectives also the fact that top managers are they want to look good. Also in crisis, they are perspectives that needs to understand how to handle crisis, and I find it very interesting to do crisis management training, but also injecting then new teams into that training to make them more eager and aware. And obviously AI scenarios in that kind of thing can be one small little drop in the ocean. I'm not sure if the other perspective is how to get the top management to get it. What's the source?
I think a parts of it is what you said, is like reputational, when it is something that media is very focused on and other stakeholders, especially investors, are focused on, then the C-level executives start being more willing to invest in it. And also when there are very bad examples of companies going bankrupt because of huge security breaches or having like a severe financial impact, I think that pushes C-level to take that conversation more seriously. But I feel like, I don't know, in my experience, the companies I have worked with, they are concerned, and the board is involved in that work. Not saying that they're concerned doesn't mean that security is still their first investment or where all the money is going to, but there is that understanding that there is value in investing in robust security.
Yeah, in the U.S., if you're a publicly traded company, the nebulous area revolving around that is gone. The SEC has been very clear in terms of their level of tolerance for irresponsible handling of data and especially customer data, PII, PHI, and stuff like that. Exactly. So I think the hidden message, which applies to this entire space, is that if you, company X, are not going to handle things responsibly, well, we're going to step in and force you to do so. And they've actually fined a number of American companies at this point in recent times, pretty hefty fines at that. So I think, doing it for the sake of doing it because it's the right thing to do sounds wonderful, but that not many companies take that approach. So now the government's just going to force their hand.
But Andreas, is it so now that the CISO of SolarWinds is put onto trial in a way in that context?
Yeah, the SEC has charged him with fraud. I know Tim personally, by the way.
And then, of course, the question becomes, but has he had the mandate, the capacity, and the interest from top management to actually do his job? And obviously, it's more of a question that all CISOs have a challenge in, right?
Yeah. I don't want to say anything about that because it's an active case, but you can read the transcript, the court transcripts, and see all of the details. It starts to become a very gray area now, because it's like, okay, if you did everything that you had to do to not be negligent, but you did not get the support from your company, where do you as an individual stand, right? Because he's being charged as an individual, not so much as an officer of that company exclusively. And so it's definitely an interesting new paradigm that nobody in this industry has seen, or at least I haven't in all my years.
Yeah.
Let's take a quick question again from Raza Sadiq. Model governance in financial services is key. Having a model register and how models are performing is the key in reducing black box and continuous governance through risk committee / model government committees. What is the panel's?
I think having governance it's the basics and essence for use of any technology, including AI systems. When it comes to the black box problem, I think that's a technical issue. Essentially, LLMs are built on nonlinear math, and they are impossible to explain. When you want to use it for very important tasks, for example, if you're going to deny someone a loan or not, you cannot rely completely on this technology. You need to have so many guardrails, so much control of the data that's put in, make sure that it's not biased, that it reflects the reality of the problem it's trying to tackle. So there's so many things to take into consideration when you're going to use an AI system to make very important decisions. So regulation is coming with a lot of requirements on that. But I guess despite the regulation, it's just basic common sense. You need to be able to explain certain very important decisions that you make when it comes to people's financial life. And then if you're going to rely completely on automated decisions made by generative AI, I guess that's complicated. So you have to build so many guardrails around it, and you have to have a very, very good governance control.
I want to expand on that. Lais is 100% correct, but the LLM is not the only piece of the puzzle that matters.
No.
There's an NLP component that actually contextualizes the input, and that is super important, because what the backend is going to give you as a response is based on the understanding of the query that's being presented. And obviously, these are not SQL queries, they're human language queries. Mm-hmm. And so the NLP processing of the input data starts to become critical. My biggest concern, having written code half of my career, is that an NLP engine is code that somebody wrote, which means that there may be flaws. Mm-hmm. And now you're possibly in a flawed form contextualizing input and generating a response based on the understanding of that input. That starts to make me kind of nervous and uneasy, to your point, Lais. So I'm just saying,
there have been cases, horrible cases. I don't know if like the Netherlands, the Dutch government, when they falsely accused hundreds of families of frauding the system based on a wrong algorithm, and there were kids who lost their the parent. Like, it was a mess. In the end, like, they had to step down from the government. So there is so much risk in relying on algorithms to make this type of decision. Yeah. And that's why it's required so much technical understanding, constant monitoring of the quality of the data, of validating the system for bias. There's so many practices that are required to be able to use those.
And I think also seeing it from an auditor perspective, the market of third-party attestation and audits into this now is going to boom, because exactly that question of, can we trust this, and how much effort have we done in really assuring trust in the model? It's going to be really interesting, and I'm seeing all the big accounting and or auditing firms are moving very much in this direction. It's going to be interesting.
Yes, I think trust, it's like, it has been a trend where it's becoming more and more difficult to trust people, trust society, trust businesses and systems in general. And I guess that will become more and more of like a keyword going forward, where it's difficult to learn. You cannot trust what you're seeing, like the deep fakes technology is getting more and more advanced. You don't trust the sources of what you read. That's why I'm very pro regulation, very pro adoption of best practices, not only because I'm a lawyer, but also because I see that too. But I see the benefit of it. I see the law as, of course, like if you live on the 10th floor of a very high building with a gorgeous view, and then you have a huge window, the law is kind of like the glass that keeps you, like, allows you to enjoy the view without falling, you know? And I think obviously people will be like, oh, but I cannot feel the fresh air. And like, yeah, but you're also not going to die, you know? I think like there is balances. The law, of course, limits innovation to a certain extent, but to its benefit, in my opinion, mostly.
That kind of brings us back full circle to the beginning of when we said, all companies will do what's in their best interest from a financial perspective first, and then look at other factors. And if regulation isn't in place to make them think about this other thing, they will follow the money. Sorry, go on.
No. Okay. I want to just real quick. I want to agree. I do. But laws keep good people doing good things. Yeah. Bad people don't care about laws. So laws,
no, they don't.
Think about it. Right?
That is a big problem. Yeah.
The last time I checked, there are probably laws in every country against murder, but people get murdered, right?
But that's the thing. Yeah. But I understand and I validate your argument. But in that sense, the next step would be, okay, so let's make murdering legal, you know? So you cannot really do that. You know what I mean?
No,
like, so I understand because,
I'm
but you know what I mean?
When
like,
I said disagree, I didn't mean go out and murder people.
Yeah, no, that was not what I was advocating.
You know what I mean?
saying.
Like, I advocate,
I'm just
of
saying.
course, I would like to enforce the regulation on all actors, but there will be bad actors, there will be cyber criminals, but it doesn't mean that you shouldn't regulate everyone else where this regulation can be enforced upon. It's a basic. It is a challenge, and I'm not saying that it doesn't exist. And it might, as you say, feels like we're enabling the good actors and disabling the good actors and enabling the bad actors. But I don't see it that way, because we're still allowed to use technology to strengthen our defenses, and the way that the upcoming regulation is built, it has, in my opinion, a very good risk-based approach. It's quite balanced. There is obviously always the risk that it might hinder innovation to a certain extent, but I think not enough to make it not worth having those guardrails in place to have a good framework and a hope that we're going to create a golden standard to make sure that in the long run, these systems will build value and they will be human-centric values. And yeah.
Well, are we seeing now? Sorry, Tom.
Go on. Very quickly, though. Go on.
Yeah, I'm just concerned that laws and regulations, including cybersecurity, more and more becomes politics. That the EU, for example, are regulating more and more to protect the EU market from, for example, big American AI companies. Mm-hmm. And that is kind of that difficulty, because we want this to be safe, secure, and manageable. Mm-hmm. And then suddenly it becomes complex. Very
unfortunately, we can never run away from politics. But I agree.
Absolutely.
And I think it's sad that, like financial forces are having so much control over the lobbying and how the regulation is being built. Even with that said, if you read the text of the proposal of the UAI Act, I still find it very human rights centric and very good. Like, it has a good protection of fundamental rights, which I think is the key. I think when it's actually this political debate around foundational models and how that's going to affect the big the vendors and the big tech companies, I think there is certain financial interest on that, but also there is also certain dilemmas on how people are using that data and the risks that they pose. It's hard to, it's a balance that needs to be reached.
Right, hopefully. we are right up against the time, and I told you one or more of you would go off on one just as we needed to close, but it's all good. This is all great stuff. This is great stuff. I want to ask, and I'm going to just ask this to you, Laisha, because I think you're probably the most qualified to answer it, and you've got to answer it in like 5 seconds, okay? Because we've got to move on. So, any idea? And this is from Kine Amiibo. Any idea how close we are to having regulations on AI?
So the UAI Act was expected to be to come out at the end of this year. Now there has been a lot of disruption on the negotiations, so I'm not sure. Perhaps beginning of next year, hopefully. There is even talk of not coming in this mandate at all. So so soon enough, hopefully. And then after it's been published, it has like 2 years of enforcement. But then again, just to reiterate, don't wait until regulation is out to follow best practices. That's key.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you so much. I'm going to give each of you, I normally give people 10 seconds. I'm going to give each of you like less than 10 seconds now. What is the one thing people should do when they get back to their desk tomorrow if they want to look at, embracing AI tools in their security world? Eldar, let me start with you. Nice and brief.
Fix the basics. Get control of your data.
I like it. Andres?
Trust nothing.
And Laish?
I would say Yeah, maintain good controls. Risk management. It's key. Governance.
Okay, brilliant. All three of you, thank you so much for your time. Very, very engaging. It's flown past. So, Eldar, thank you, who I believe is in Norway's most northern city. So that's pretty far north, I would have to say. Thank you, Leish, who is also in Norway. This is a very European podcast webinar. And Andres, who is obviously in the US. Thank you, all three of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Don't forget to join me for our next session, which is on the 30th of November, which is not next week, but the week after. Improving Your Cyber Resilience with Threat Intelligence is the title. As it regards the winner of the mug, it's going to go to Kini Emibo. I'm sorry, I've completely butchered your name, Kenny. It's going to go to Kenny because basically because they said please at the end of their question. I really like that. That's very polite, and you know, you can all learn a thing or two out there. So, Kenny, well done. Thank you very much. Once again, thank you, Leish, thank you, Eldar, and thank you, Andres, for your time today. And for the rest of you, don't forget to stay secure, my friends. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.